Here we go. All right. Let me get this going. Okay. Here we go. All right, folks, here we go. Look at that. All right, we're going to bring you the latest. Busy day here. Very important day. Start early. Go like that. Okay, I think that should be okay. Folks, busy time, but we are ready to roll. Let me just check. Okay. Let me double check with Roger. Okay, then there's that. Then we're going to go to this. Where am I? There I am. There I am, Lord. All right. I think we should be good to go. Just double check. Right now. Yep. And right now it's 104. Let me check all of our links. I think everything is flowing. Yep. What a big day in court. Folks, it's been a very busy day already. Do this. Okay. I think this sounds fine. I'm going to double check it. Then we're going to start. Okay. Let me double check this. But I think, share that you are watching, everybody. What a morning in court. What a day this has already been. Plus, we're going to do politics this week. Here I am. Let me double check that. I think it should be nice and clear. And it is. Yep, we're nice and clear. Okay. Okay. Nope. It is 105. What a beautiful day it is. All right. We are standing by what has been a big day already. Yep. Normally have. I can do that. Okay. Hello. Just need to give me the go ahead. I just need that text. from Roger. 106. Hello. We are standing by. Normally, I'm waiting for Roger to text me to say live. I'm not sure why we're not getting that, because we're going to start. We are in motion. Everything's rolling. Hello. Just text. I'm going to have to start in a minute. Where's my text? Not sure what's happening. Who's panicked? We are ready to roll. We just check. All right, not sure what's happening on that end. We're going to start in just a moment. I'm just waiting for my cue. That's all I need. And I don't know why I'm not getting it. All I need. And I don't know why I'm not getting. Folks, stand by. We are ready. Okay, this is John. I'm waiting for Roger to text me live.
Okay. He said you can go.
Okay, there we go. All right. That's what we're waiting for. Folks, good afternoon. We are on right now at 1:08 on this beautiful Monday, April 28th. We are outside of the Karen Read retrial. I was inside the courtroom. I'm going to tell you about that. The next, also this hour, we're going to do politics this week with Justin Katz, managing editor of AnchorRising.com. But a very, very significant day in the Karen Read retrial. I'm going to tell you why. But let's stay on schedule, folks. This portion of the program is brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Pansy flats, pansy bags, hangers and bowls. Today's a beautiful day, my goodness. Today is, I'd say, the nicest day. I can see everybody is, this is the lunch break right now. The jury's done for the day, but folks, stop it and see them. Tulips, hyacinthus, daffodils, and beautiful hydrangeas in blue, white, and pink. They carry everything you need to make your home property the best it can look. It's Rhode Island's #1 garden center, open for the season. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Let me just adjust this, and folks, I also want to remind you, remember the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue in West Warwick. As we like to say, lunch, dinner, much better. Drinks in the lounge, and they're waiting for you at the Cohasset Inn. I think that is good. Okay, now, windy outside, but the weather is beautiful. Don't forget, folks, the Cohasset Inn, whether it's lunch, dinner, or drinks in the lounge, and they can also accommodate big groups. What I love about the Cohasset Inn is they're always improving the menu. They're always upgrading the menu. There's always something different. And they can accommodate a large group. Not a lot of people can. Some places cannot accommodate large groups. At the Cohasset Inn, they can. The Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Proud sponsors of DePietro.com. We have a lot of video up. We have a lot of exclusive stories and information. It's all right there at the website, DePietro.com. Before we get to Justin Katz and politics this week, and before I'm going to tell you, this morning was a very significant morning in the Karen Read retrial, and that's where we are. We are right outside the courthouse. I was in court. I'm going to go back into court because there's a special hearing this afternoon with these experts from ARCA. And these were the two. And they have a lot of questions to answer. And the whole thing is very suspicious. How they insisted in the first trial that when they did accident reconstruction, that the injuries to Officer John O'Keefe were not consistent with the car strike. where this thing, and it never made sense. It never made sense. And then we've learned since then that they had an under the radar relationship with the Karen Reed defense, and that has put the defense's hot water. And now these two experts from ARCA are going to come slinking in here. But I want to tell you what happened this morning in the Karen Reed retrial because it's very, very significant, folks. But this portion of the program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Call Propane Plus today, 401-885-4209 in Rhode Island. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. Propane Plus, and they have a very user-friendly website. It's propaneplus.com. Now, what happened this morning? So this morning, there was a lot of speculation of who some of the witnesses are going to be. And there were people last week that were announcing that it was going to be one of the witnesses named Judy Nagel. But that's not who testified this morning. So as I was sitting in that courthouse this morning, in the Karen Reed retrial, who took to the stand but Ian Whiffen of Celebrate. And he told a story that Richard Green, who was this very suspicious defense expert who misinterpreted the data, what kind of expert? He testified. We learned Richard Green actually contacted Ian Whiffen to ask him to explain the Celebrate data. I could see the defense like gulping, like how embarrassing is this? And then he never called him back. But the biggest takeaway, and there were a lot, but this morning in the Karen Reed retrial, Ian Whiffen of Celebrate, they looked into the data and they looked into these questions about the timestamp. And what they did this morning is they buried once and for all this myth that there was several things he did, but one is there was no 227 Google search. That was a cornerstone of the Karen Reed defense. In the docuseries Body in the Snow, Alan Jackson says at the end of episode one of his investigators called him and said, "You're never going to believe this." Jen McCabe Googled how long to die in the cold at 227. Today, this morning, Ian Whiffen, and done brilliantly by Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan, brilliantly laid out that technologically it is impossible that happened. The Google search happened at 6:23 that morning. Now, I can't overstate how important it was that they had Ian Whiffen up today to lay out when the Google search was, that there was no data deleted, how important that was. Last spring, Jen McCabe got up on the stand and Alan Jackson was saying, "You're a liar and you deleted things." And that's when you Google it, and it was like a big joke. I believe they've defanged Alan Jackson. How can he say that when you just had an expert explain very easy to the jury that the Google search did not happen? So here's what I want to say. At this point, on this Monday, anyone that says that going forward, you're not dealing in reality. I was just in the courtroom, and it was easy to understand, and Hank Brennan did it in a very easy to follow manner. By the way, the jury, and we have to be very cautious how we describe the jury. I would just say, and I was talking about another member of the media, the jury to me seems somewhat tech savvy, where they could understand a lot of what they were talking about, even though it wasn't that complicated. So that was very significant. But here's the big bombshell of the morning with the Karen Reed retrial. And this is last Tuesday was opening arguments. So 1, 2, 3, this is day 5. They were able to not only track his phone, John O'Keefe's phone, he never left the area of the flagpole. He never left the area of the flagpole. It stopped moving and he stopped moving. On top of that, they even have the temperature of the phone from when he was in the car, got out of the car, started to drop. He was on top of the phone on the lawn. And then when he was taken off the phone, how the temperature of the phone dropped even more. You can't argue with the data. You can't argue with the science. Here's what this morning showed. Now, it was last time around, last spring, was the notion, the third-party culprit, that there was a conspiracy. And Alan Jackson even did it in an interview. Hey, John, come on in the house. We want to show you something. And boom, they beat him to death for no reason and no murder weapon, no motive, in the basement. That's off the table. It was wild to watch as the phone with John O'Keefe traveled all the way to 34 Fairview. They even have when Karen took the wrong turn. What else was debunked was so many people have said his phone tracked he was going up and down stairs. False. It's because the car was rolling over hills. Very significant. Now, when I say this, I recognize that a lot of her supporters, a lot of the Karen Read supporters, they have no interest in hearing it. They're never going to believe it. It doesn't matter to them. Everybody's a liar. Everything's a fraud. But what I'm telling you is it was crystal clear for the jury. It was crystal clear for the jury. They understood it. It made sense to them. It was thorough. There's no way to argue. Richard Green, who was the defense expert, called Ian Whiffen of Celebrite to ask him to interpret the data for him. Folks, that portion of the case, I am telling you, the jury was alert. The jury was interested. The jury was engaged. Where the defense also made a mistake this morning was Robert Alisi was cross-examining Ian Whiffen for the defense. They're using some slides. They're using the projector. But Alisi made the mistake that he kept the lights off. And he wasn't showing anything on the screen. He was just droning on. Folks, when you're in there and it's starting to warm up outside, and now you're starting at the lunchtime hour, and the lights are out, I saw at least a couple jurors starting to doze off. That was a mistake by Alisi. On top of that, Alisi has a little bit of a droning on voice. So again, I want to be very clear. If to her supporters, they're going to just wash this out. That doesn't matter. They're all lot. But I am telling you, as I stand here right now at 1:19 on this Monday, that was wildly impressive. Way better than the first jury. They took so much off the table as far as the Google search. They took off the table that John even ever entered the house. By the way, the defense has given up on that. They've taken away that he was going up and down stairs. The temperature on the phone, he never went inside. He never went inside. You can't argue that. Now they're trying to say, well, he was in the garage. Well, he was in the backyard. I guess you could just keep trying to change the story, but it's not going to work. All right, we're going to talk to Justin Katz, managing editor of AnchorRising.com, in just a moment for our segment Politics This Week. But folks, this portion of the program brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Reserve the spot for your child or grandchild. Their summer camp is coming up. Don't miss out. Kids Club on the Pike. They're right off of 295, Cranston-Johnston line. Call Kristen, 401-443-5336. Kids Club on the Pike and their summer camp. All right, let's bring him on. He is the managing editor for Anchor. We'll come back to Karen Read before 2 o'clock, but he is the managing editor for Rising.com. And it is Justin Katz. Good afternoon, Justin.
Good afternoon, John. How are you?
I'm very well. Justin, I want to start off your thoughts. I understand the notion and the old adage, speak no ill of the dead. But I just find that the way this whole thing is playing out, where, the state is treating Senate President Dominic Ruggerio and the whole funeral and the wake and everything else, I feel like they're acting as though a great statesman has passed away when in reality, I've been hearing from business people all week that because of the lock on the state Senate, private sector is basically extinguished in Rhode Island.
Well, I think you put your finger on something. Rhode Island, the political insiders like to think of themselves as aristocratic, as royalty, as a statesmen and stateswomen, people who really their britches are bigger than they are, so to speak. They think there's a lot more to what they do, and I think we see that. There's no question, what's interesting is we should have. I think that's frankly we should look at these legislators as just regular people who are there for a time and then go out. But they've built up this idea that he was only the third Senate president, and the governor and a Senate president and a Speaker of the House. They're statesmen, are top judges, they're important people. But they're really not. There's this. I think it's almost like from somebody who didn't grow up in Rhode Island. There's almost like this inferiority idea around here where it's such a small state, they feel like they have to speak up themselves some. But I think one of the things that was very interesting to me, Senator Chacon has been talking about as he's fighting back progressives. He says he implies that he really agrees with the progressives, but he has to sort of kowtow to his constituents, and that's what we see in the General Assembly, and we saw it with Ruggiero as well. They'll go as far as their insider, as far as they can bring their insiders' dominant ideology and not represent the people. They're not great statesmen. They're deal makers and corrupt politicians for the most part.
Justin, now let's talk about it. And it's going to kick off. I mean, it started even before he was buried, but now that, now the funeral arrangements, everything's going to be finalized. Now it kicks off, and it's been going on in the backdrop behind the scenes for who's going to take his place, who's going to be the leadership in the Senate. I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I have yet to see one person put out a statement. I haven't seen one editorial. I haven't seen anyone say this is crazy that Val Lawson, the head of the teachers union, would become the Senate president. It's, as you and I have talked about, it's a conflict of interest. Public education in the state is, at rock bottom. It's not in line with what's going on in the nation. But I don't understand how tacit even the Republican Party is on this topic.
Yeah, it's almost as if we can't even see the just deep corruption for what it is anymore. I mean, that's exactly what this is. You can put all the campaign finance laws on the books that you want. This woman is paid $160,000 a year as the president of the NEA in Rhode Island. She's essentially a paid advocate. I mean, you're not just talking, it's a part-time legislature. We all understand they have to have jobs. A lot of them are lawyers or business people or this or that, teachers, what have you. That's great and that's fine and that's understandable. She is a paid advocate for one of arguably the biggest special interest in the state. That's not, and paid via taxpayers. That's not appropriate for her to also be the Senate president. I don't think she should even be a representative, or senator. But that's what we're seeing, and people can disagree with me on that. But as you say, they're not even discussing it. I mean, you'll see Kathy Gregg in the Providence Journal note her salary and what her role is, so as if that's the transparency we need. But this should be a subject of deep debate. What we get is the more and more you ratchet up the controls on campaign finance, the more you make me fill out monthly reports, even though I haven't been involved actively in politics for a long time. The more that happens, the less opposition you get, and the more you make sure that everybody in there has some way to get theirs from another means, and that's what we're seeing. And I think it absolutely should be the top. It shouldn't be progressive versus conservative Democrat, because that's a lie in the first place. It should be, how are we even talking about this woman being the Senate president? But there we are. I mean, everybody in the news, I guess, agrees with her so much that they just don't care.
What's interesting, Justin, is there, and again, folks, we speak with Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com. Right now, we are live on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. Plus, we're live on X. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. Justin, the topic of controversy that the local media, that they do seem to be comfortable with, is the progressives and the gun stance, if you will, on Senator Frank Chacon. That is okay to explore. But I don't even hear, again, I'm up at the trial, so I'm not covering, I don't listen to other local talk radio, but I don't even hear, unless I'm missing something, not one person on talk radio is leading the charge saying, hey, this is a conflict of interest, and the head of one of the teachers unions should not be the Senate president, one of the three branches of government in the state.
Absolutely. I mean, and not just the talk radio host. It should be news. It should be the NPR affiliate. It should be all of them should be asking this question. If she's in front of them, they should ask, are you considering leaving your paid position? I mean, at least Ruggiero was retired from his laborer's position.
Right.
So we're taking another step. She's actively the president of this union. And notice something specifically. I've been pointing out for years, the teachers unions especially, but all public sector unions in Rhode Island are increasingly, they're not really labor unions. They're progressive, far left activist organizations that use labor services as a way they get money and power.
Now, Justin Katz, I also want to mention.
I think I've lost you, John. Are you there? Oh.
Okay. All right. I think we're good. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I think we're good. Justin, I was talking about Helena Folks, and what I was going to say was, and I'm just wondering if now, we've heard, you can't ignore the dynamic has changed. The U.S. Attorney's Office going after CVS. There certainly has been speculation on. Oh, good. We're good to go on whether or not she's had to testify. So I'm just curious, and I haven't heard anyone say this, but I mean, is it possible that because of this lawsuit with CVS, and not only the lawsuit, but that the U.S. attorney's going after them, do you think it's possible that she's having second thoughts about this run for governor?
Well, I imagine it's possible. I don't have any inside view of her campaign, so I can't say for sure. I mean, she's still out there doing some fundraisers. We've talked about recently how she's raising money. She seems like she's keeping a somewhat lower profile, particularly among mainstream news organizations. That could be just she's watching what's going on with the Senate president race. And she realizes now with the CVS controversy, at the same time, the progressives are all unified and up in arms trying to ensure progressive Senate leadership. This may not be the time to give them the invitation to attack her for being a corporate stooge or something like that. So it may be a strategic thing. I mean, she's got time, but we'll see. She's got a lot of money in the bank to be thinking race. So I'd be surprised if she were at this point.
Just what I find interesting is normally if someone is going to be seeking office, when they are canceling a media appearance, they're at least saying, it could be legitimate for whatever reason, going out of town, blah, blah, blah. But the fact she's not rebooking, that just gives me pause that maybe it is possible. Maybe the key people are signaling that they're really going to go after her. Again, I know initially her position was nothing could stop her from running. I'm not 100% on that the way I was. And we don't know what's in the background and whether or not she actually wants to go through the next year and a half of them tearing down everything that she's built and attacking her with CVS. Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner, and this is a story that Justin has found. And Justin, what do you have for us this week?
Well, one thing I thought was interesting, people may have noticed the Illinois governor, Pritzker, who's a billionaire, even though Democrats are supposedly against billionaires, has been saying that Republicans can't know a moment of peace, that we have to be attacked and harassed, and our pictures ought to be put in a hall of tyrants in the future. Very, you might say, insurrectionist type language. And I noted that in a friendly way on Twitter. And one of our local, gadflies, Ken Block, took issue with that. And what I found really striking is Ken's a lot like Democrats. He thinks I'm saying this is just like violence, and that's not the case. What's interesting is when Republicans say things like that, they are culpable for all the violence from anybody on the right. When Democrats say it, oh, we understand. It's just metaphorical language. He doesn't really mean it. And I think that it's just interesting to note that kind of thing. And I think people should, especially in this audience, should watch. We're gonna get treated to a lot of people speaking in an insurrectionist fashion and then ignoring actual violence that does occur from the left as we move through the Trump presidency.
Well, he gave that speech, I believe, in New Hampshire, which certainly signals he's already looking ahead to 2028. I think it's interesting if that's going to be the tone, which means if you're going to run and you want to be a Democrat, it becomes a top this atmosphere where you talk about, the fight and the fight and the fight. And that's excellent, astute to pick that out. The fact that the governor of Illinois is coming out in that manner, then those are people that they are obstructionists. Folks, again, our segment, Politics This Week. He is Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, folks, there it is. There is our segment. Sorry, we had a minor glitch with that, but I believe and we are all set. Okay, let's stay on schedule. We have time. Something very significant. Now, again, just to reset, right now at 1:32, we are in Dedham. Yes, that was me on Court TV this morning talking about the serial killer. I'm going to talk about that, or rumors of a serial killer, in just a moment. But I also want to talk about this is a big day with the retrial of Karen Read. Now, I'm going to be going back into court, and this is one of the coveted media badges that you get. There's only a limited number that is allowed inside the courtroom. I find it makes a difference. It gives you a sense. I don't know if anyone else is noticing that, but I noticed certain things. I noticed that Hank Brennan, special prosecutor, and Ian Whiffen, they certainly were in a good rhythm. They certainly kept the jury's attention. Robert Alisi of the defense, he's a little long-winded. I think when they dim the lights, I don't think it was as effective, but I'll talk about it. And then I'm going to talk about what's happening this afternoon. But I want to remind you about Arch Design Builders. Call them today, 401-207-4124. 401-207-4124. Arch Design Builders, whether it's for a new kitchen or a new bathroom, or you think of a new basement, or redoing your basement, I should say, deck, special project, Arch Design Builders. You're going to notice the Arch difference. 401-218-9707. It's really simple. Call and set up the free consultation. Ed and Roxanne, if you're thinking of a new kitchen or a new bathroom or a basement or a special project, this is who you want to deal with. Arch Design Builders. Well, folks, good afternoon. Obviously, because I am up here at the trial, the Karen Read retrial takes precedent, and especially there's several things about this that I just want to clear up. There's a lot of noise outside. Remember, there's two worlds here. One world is inside the courtroom. One world is where the jury is. One world is, the people that are living in that every day, the jurors, and the evidence that they're hearing. You have outside the courtroom, there's all kinds of noise, and there's all circus-like atmosphere going on. That's not going on inside. So just to recap, and I can pick out when someone doesn't know the difference. Now, as I stated, the Commonwealth, the special prosecutor, Hank Brennan, they had a good week last week. A lot of the stuff that people are picking at, I don't think they're deal breakers, such as, what are we talking about last week? You had a paramedic that said, I heard her say, I hit him. And then the defense goes to war, and they're trying to say, what's their big argument? She only said it twice. She didn't say, I hit him. She only said, I hit him. What are we talking about? You then had a video clip that they played of Karen where she said, I did say I hit him, but I didn't say it as many times as they claimed I did. My point is, the clips, and I was saying this on Court TV the other day, folks, the clips are wildly, very, very effective. And they have thrown the defense off of their rhythm. So I would argue, I think the prosecution had a really good week. And, I was anxious to see, okay, today is day 5, and it's a new week. And how are they going to be able to, are they going to pick up the momentum? It's going to be, and I would say this morning, when you have an expert get on the stand, and we'll see, I'm open, maybe defense Attorney Bob Alisi, maybe in one of his soliloquies, he can poke holes in it. But I thought he was pretty effective. And what he talked about was we have science and data that John O'Keefe never left the front of the house, the flagpole. Remember, the prosecution is saying she hit him with her vehicle, and I don't understand why people are mystified that happened or could have happened, that she was the last person to see him alive, that she backed her car into him. There were text messages they were fighting, and that she hit him, cut him with the taillight. He was knocked unconscious on the ground, and the cell phone was underneath him. And that's why she knew exactly where he was the next morning. So I don't understand why that's so hard to believe. I have to admit, I don't understand the people like, there's no way, like, how can you say there's no way that she hit him with the car? Well, the guys that were claiming, no, inconsistent, they're going to be on the stand. They're going to be on the stand this afternoon. We're going to learn a lot more, this murky relationship between Karen Read defense and these ARCA experts. But when you have an expert, and I want you to understand, I was watching the jury this morning. When you're watching an expert get up there, and he's got the British accent, which I think makes him even more seem like an expert, but he tells a story. It was I'll say this, it was a very effective PowerPoint presentation of they even had it, like, here's the phone moving along, and you can track it. Folks, the technology is amazing, and they're following him. And there's where she took the wrong turn, 3-point turn down the wrong road. There they are at Fairview, and that's where the phone stops. And it never goes inside, and it never goes around into the back. I thought that was effective. What I thought was very effective was the temperature of the phone. The temperature of the phone. You can track when he's inside the car, and then when he goes outside the car. So I thought that was very effective. Now, again, we'll see. Maybe the defense will poke holes. On top of that, he said definitively. Now, this is the Ian Whiffen expert to celebrate. Said definitively, there's no way that Google search of Jen McCabe happened at 2:27 in the morning. He said it this morning. I was there. Now, there are people saying, I'm not trying to convince you. You believe whatever you want. But it was a very polished demonstration. It was done with PowerPoint. People can dismiss it if they like. I thought it was very, very effective warning so far for the Commonwealth. And we'll see what they're going to lead with this afternoon. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Hey, call Corey. I shared their Facebook page, 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. They seal coat driveways and parking lots. They can resurface a sport court. They could redo your pickleball court, tennis court, basketball. They epoxy garages and patios. Decorative concrete flooring, they make it look like new. It's Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call Corey, 401-283-9815. Now, I want to touch on at 1:40. So I will be going in the courtroom this afternoon. Now, court is done for the day. Jury sent home. Jury, how would I describe the jury? Very attentive. I'll talk in code a little bit. They seem tech savvy. They seem more tech savvy than some other juries that I've seen. And, I think if you think about that, you just think about who might be tech savvy. And then in your own life, in your own experience, you have a problem with something. If you have a tech problem with your phone or your iPad or TV, do you try to fix it, or do you ask your children to fix it? Or do you ask your young adult children to fix it. If you're having a problem with your cell phone, do you ask your parents to fix it, or do you ask your children to fix it? And that gives you the answer to me of who it is that's on the jury. I'll say this. This is not an easy case, the Karen Read trial. They're going to be spinning. They're going to try to spin. I don't know how. I don't know how you spin this one. It was a very effective, easy to understand, pinpoint demonstration. I felt for the O'Keefe family. I was watching them. There's John's phone, and it stops right in front of the house and then never leaves the flagpole. What does that do? Remember, in the first trial, the conspiracy was they dragged him in the house. Remember the plow driver saying he drove by and he didn't see anyone, and they were saying it's because they threw. The story was they threw him out on the front lawn at, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning or something like that. Well, they've already testified there was grass underneath when they found him, and the cell phone was not outside that long. So if they want to move this to that happened in the garage, have at it. I was watching Court TV, and Joe Krowski said, okay, let's go with the prerogative that they brought him in the house and they beat him to death. Well, they have the GPS data of Karen Read's Lexus where it stopped on the street, and it happens to be in the exact spot where John O'Keefe's phone stopped moving. And so somehow in the house, again, this was first trial, when they beat him to death with no motive, no murder weapon, and then decided to throw him on the front lawn, it just happened to be in the exact spot where she had a broken taillight, where the GPS on her SUV matched up, and where his cell phone matched up. Again, if you believe that, I'm not going to be the one to convince you. I'm not going to be the one to convince you. It also came out, some of the things we've heard is that his phone showed he was going up and down flights of stairs. They called it his Apple Health Watch. And what the experts said was he held his phone out while he was driving and noticed that the phone, if he was going over some hills, the phone would make it seem that he was possibly going up and down stairs. He clarified it. I'll say this. After that testimony, there's no way to misinterpret what happened with that. And it was not that he was going up and down stairs. Now, there are some people with the retrial that want to just keep saying that she was framed. They don't know what to say. I see some of the comments. You got to be kidding me. There's no way, corruption, she was framed. But I'm telling you, this morning was very effective with the PowerPoint demonstration when they talk about temperature of phone. It changed when he left the car, and then it even changed at 6:04 when they were moving him. So I believe that that's going to be very difficult to overcome. Let's sit and wait and see if they can do that. This portion of the program, folks, if you're thinking of a new roof, brought to you by Roof Co. Rhode Island, call them today, 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149. Roof Co. Rhode Island. Give them a call. They'd be happy to inspect your roof for wind damage, give you a free estimate. Maybe your roof has been damaged by wind. It's pretty windy over the weekend. Leaky roof, missing lifted or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, damaged chimney flashing. Call Roof Co. Rhode Island today. They'd be happy to inspect your roof for wind damage. Give you a free estimate. It's very possible because of the wind damage, you're entitled with your insurance to a new roof. Roof Co. Rhode Island. Call them 401-868-7149. They're another one. I share their Facebook page. Now, I also want to mention we do have an update with with Johnston. Let me just double check. It's 146. Just double check because I want to make sure these ARCA experts are going to be going back in, and they're not there yet. I'm So, good. Okay. Christina Rex put, before the lunch break, there's a juror called up to sidebar with the judge and the lawyers and Karen Reed. Judge questions him. He remains on the jury. He's not dismissed. Oh, lunch until 2 o'clock. Okay, good. So good. That helps. Listen, as far as the Johnston situation, and I know that Channel 10, that they, they have the guy, the person's, his friend he was having the argument with, and then they had his father, and the father, he didn't do anything wrong, and you have a situation at 11:30 on Saturday night, Johnston Police Department, possible disturbance at the Shell gas station, Hartford Avenue. Call made by a third party, potential argument, male, female. Well, that was accurate. That was going on. Upon arrival, officers located the involved female and the male as described by the caller. Male was seated alone in the driver's seat of the Nissan, positioned in the parking lot facing out. As one of the responding officers exited his patrol vehicle, the driver accelerated forward and hit the police officer. At that time, the officer discharged his service weapon, firing multiple rounds at the driver. The Sentra Nissan continued across Hartford Avenue and then collided into a pylon in front of a business. Officers rendered medical aid, transported her back to the hospital. He's receiving treatment for the gunshot wound to the abdomen. He's in stable condition. The driver of the vehicle has been identified as Damian Peterson, 28 Hartford Avenue in Providence. At the time of the incident, he was wanted on an active Rhode Island State Police arrest warrant for obstructing an officer and reckless driving. Yesterday, he was arraigned special arraignment, felony assault of a police officer. I want to just mention that I understand the get, but for Channel 10 to air that, look at the information that we just had. When they interviewed the father on Channel 10, and they had the friend of the guy that got shot, Damian, a fair question is, was he wanted? I mean, the way I read that, he's wanted on an outstanding warrant for assaulting a police officer. Police are arriving. He obviously has an anger management problem. So as they are arriving, he then realizes that he now active Rhode Island State Police arrest warrant, reckless driving. So he then realizes, he knows he's got a warrant out for his arrest. So he's trying to get out of there. You can't do that. You can't do that. The police officer did nothing wrong. You can't run your vehicle at a police officer. Now, maybe I understand. Maybe the family's trying to say, well, he didn't mean to hit the officer. Listen, this business of the reckless driving, it's going to come to an end. That was the wrong move. And what are the police supposed to do? You're driving your vehicle at the police and striking him. I believe he panicked and then was just trying to get the hell out of there. But you don't go around and then start saying, they're out to. I heard some of it on Channel 10. They're out to get him, and he's working all the time, and he's still at a warrant out, and that's probably what led him to try to bail the hell out of there. All right, I'm going to get back to Karen Reed in just a moment. But folks, I want to remind you, when disaster strikes, ServPro of Providence, fire damage, water damage, mold, they can bring your property back fast, thorough, professional. ServPro of Providence. Call them 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. ServPro of Providence. They're available 24/7. Fire strikes, water, something goes wrong. ServPro of Providence. 401-941-5500. Well, folks, good afternoon. Again, we are what is turning into, by the way, just an ideal, beautiful Monday afternoon. We are in Dedham. It is the first day, 5th day, 5, and we start the new week with the Karen Reed retrial. I want to just make sure I'm hitting everybody that I'm supposed to. I recognize there's a lot of interest in this case. As a matter of fact, Fox, if you go on the platform of X and then you click up, Fox is carrying the feed live inside the courtroom. I am telling you, for those that are trying to get a handle on this, and you have people that, I mean, I see some people say go back and rewatch the first trial. You don't need to do that. It is, it's all, to me. We'll see how this week pans out. But I am telling you right now, let's look at what the prosecution did last week. They had the paramedic, Timothy Nuttall, who was on scene and heard Karen Read saying, I hit him, I hit him. I don't know whether she said it 2 times. I don't know whether he said it 3 times. But he heard that. They wanted to fight over that. That was a big development. You had Kerry Roberts that answered the phone from Karen Read. And what did she say? John's dead. Why would she call at 5 in the morning and say John's dead? Why would she say that? Why would she call back and say got hit by a plow, he's dead? Why would you think that? You had the other paramedic that testified. Again, this is all court testimony. You had the other paramedic testify who said Karen Read was asking him how long could someone survive outside without a coat on? Because John O'Keefe, he didn't wear a coat. He just had like a pullover sweatshirt, and he'd go from the car into where he was going like that. So he just didn't travel with a coat. Why would she be asking? Why would Karen Read be asking, how long could you survive outside without a winter coat on in the freezing weather? How would she know that he had been outside? There was grass underneath. 2 other parts about last week. One was the testimony of Peg O'Keefe. I saw Peg O'Keefe just a short time ago in the courtroom. She was there this morning, the mother of John O'Keefe. She's going to be there every day. She is a constant reminder to the jury that she lost her daughter to cancer and then her son. She's now raising the 2 grandchildren, which was John's niece and nephew. I thought that was a very emotional, powerful moment. She had not testified, Peg O'Keefe, in the first trial. Something else that happened last week are these clips that Hank Brennan was using. These are statements made by Karen Read, and they were playing them after each witness. As one commentator said, it was almost like a commercial coming on. Everyone stops, and then she doesn't say anything sitting at the table, but boom, there she is. There's Karen Read. What is she talking about? She's talking about, I probably said I hit him, but I didn't say as many times as they did. She's talking about drinking. She's talking about drinking and driving. She's saying, well, I wouldn't get on the expressway. I'd just go back roads really slow. My judgment was definitely off. I'd been drinking. Listen, those are things she said with a film crew. She's also arguing, the drinks are weak. As I said with Julie Grant, other people have said that's something that, like, who talks that way? I mean, there are people, usually people that are very serious drinkers talk about, oh, that place has a weak pour, right? Weak drinks. Just like that line in Wonderful Life when George goes back in time and Nick, the bartender, says, I make stiff drinks for guys that want to get drunk in a hurry. And it's no longer martinis. My point is, I just want to, if people really want to be objective, she is sitting there. This isn't like someone holding a phone recording her. This isn't even a recording. You're watching her. They have a film crew. There's lights. She's mic'd up. And she's talking about, I tasted it. I said, I can barely taste the vodka in this vodka tonic. So I had to order a shot and give it like, what? I'm not even questioning whether or not that happened. I'll tell you what, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that it happened exactly as she laid it out. My question is, why would you be saying this to a film crew? It defies what? I don't get it. And her mocking Peg O'Keefe, I am telling you, that landed like a thud with the jury. She shouldn't have been doing that. I understand why they wanted to keep it out. This wasn't at a party. and somebody again has a phone, and they're just people are fooling around, right? And then she does an impression of someone. We're not talking about that. We're talking again. You're mic'd up. It's a film crew. There's lights on you. You're rolling. Why on earth would you mimic the mother of the victim by saying she leaned over and said, "He looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car." Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you ever say something like that? You don't, as I've said, I mean, and I'm not going to be the first or the last to say it, folks. There's a reason why they say, when you're arrested, and we talked about it with attorney Stephanie Murphy, you have the right to remain silent. Now, I also understand there are people, by the way, now, and they're trying to say, why did her attorneys let her do that? And why they're all second guessing now. And now these clips are being dropped in. And now these clips, by the way, they're going to be used probably in a montage at the end. And there's more to come. And there's more things that she's saying. I don't get it. I would think if they were sitting with her, maybe then they'd go through the rules. Maybe they'd say, all right, listen, now when you're talking to the film crew for the docuseries, let's not talk about drinking. Let's not make fun of John's mother. Let's not get into whether or not, let's just, hey, listen, what's done is done, but no one is going to convince me that it's not complicating things. As I've told you, I believe there's two different worlds going on. One world is the world outside the courtroom, which is her supporters are in full overload. And, it's nothing, and blah, 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 and this one's lying, and everybody's a liar. But then you have the world inside the courtroom. And I'm telling you, those clips and the prosecution, they're off to a very strong start. A very strong start. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by J. Perry Paving. High quality, fair pricing, exceptional service. Call for a free estimate. J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. Get your driveway paved. Letter J. J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. Well, folks, good afternoon. Again, coming up, it's 1:59. Now, if you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Again, we're going to be live each day this week. This is when we're live, 1 to 2, AM 1380, 99.9 FM. But we're also live here on X, on YouTube, on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, which continues to grow, and also on YouTube. But just repeating, so the court is done for the day for the Karen Read trial. Jurors sent home, but very important hearing with potential fireworks coming up this afternoon with these experts, these ARCA experts. Their communication with the defense has drawn a lot of scrutiny from the judge and a lot of controversy with this case. All right. We'll see you later on. We're going to send it back to the studio with Roger.